Welcome today, and we'd like to share with you some important information about our MSLS program, our program in graduate legal studies. Today, we'll look specifically at learning outcomes in several of our courses. We'll begin with LS 500, go to LS 501, 502, 503, 504, 508, 509, and 510. So this will give you a lot of information in a short time. First, as to LS 500, the course typically taken first in the program, this is legal methods and process. And so this allows you as a student to learn basics about the legal system. Some of you may already know some of this, and if so, it's good to have a refresher as we start the program. This course examines why government exists and the U.S. system of constitutional government. We analyze the roles of Congress and the executive branch of government in the system, as well as the roles of the courts. We also look at federalism, the relationship between the state governments and the federal government in modern society. And we have several learning outcomes that you will accomplish by the time this course is over. You'll be able to articulate why government exists with an emphasis on the U.S. system of constitutional government. You'll be able to differentiate the roles of Congress and the executive branch of government as our government operates in the United States under the Constitution. You'll be able to analyze how federalism impacts the work of the federal and state courts in modern U.S. legal system situations. You'll be able to assess the roles of mediating institutions such as political parties and the media in influencing the U.S. system of constitutional government. And you'll be able to evaluate how the U.S. legal system addresses civil liberties and civil rights through judicial review. And so this is a great foundational course, LS 500, Legal Methods and Process. Then in LS 501, Ethics and the Professional, this course takes a deep dive into normative ethics and morality and the relationships to the professional while examining the concepts of ethics in the legal, social, and political environments of today. And the focus is on general ethical principles, application of those principles, and examination of what ethical leadership looks like. And we also focus on the determination of fundamental and common values in society that govern societal institutions today. So with learning outcomes as to LS 501, you should be able to compare concepts of normative ethics and morality. You should be able to assess normative ethical and moral principles. You should be able to analyze how legal principles shape decision making and matrices in which the professionals do operate. We talk about legal ethics a lot, for example, because this is a course involving legal studies. You'll be able to recommend solutions to business or social issues that have arisen based on your study of ethical and moral constructs. You'll be able to examine ethical leadership, what it looks like, what it should be, and the requirements involved for ethical leadership to go forward. You'll be able to also achieve goals through planning and prioritization of things that need to be done. Then in LS 502, this is a course that is very important because in legal studies, we're all about the written and spoken word. And so legal research, analysis, and writing is a crucial course as to its importance. And this course focuses on reading, analyzing, and applying the law found in a variety of legal sources, cases, statutes, administrative rulings, journal articles, and just a lot of different areas are involved here. And you'll look at methods to analyze cases to determine the facts, the issues, the analysis of each case, and the holdings of each case. The holdings are what the court decided, and we'll look at the rationale also as to why those decisions were made. So it's important to, in this course, be able to not only research and give some analysis and do some writing, but also to determine the meaning and purpose of statutes, legislative intent behind legislative enactments, and administrative rulings. So you'll have a variety of legal writing assignments here, including case briefs, memoranda, and opinions, and you'll engage in computerized legal research and develop skills in writing, as well as being able to properly cite cases in legal materials and in your legal writing. So the learning outcomes of this course indicate that you should be able to analyze primary and secondary sources of law. Primary sources involve things like the Constitution, U.S. Supreme Court cases. That's a primary source because that actually states what the law is in a given circumstance. Secondary sources of law are important too. They're interpretive. They include things like law review articles, other journal articles that are published about legal subjects, but they don't have the force of law as a Supreme Court decision would or as an act of Congress would. Also, you'll write a case brief in this course using a standard legal format that we'll share with you. This is very important so that you can separate and analyze the different parts of a case brief and understand why we break cases the way that we do. You'll also evaluate legal research by applying it to a fact pattern that will be given to you. You'll draft a legal memoranda, and you'll be able to compose legal writing containing legal research that has proper citation. The reason citations are important is you may know where you got some piece of information, but if you don't cite it properly, whoever's reading your work does not know. So people need to be able, when they're working in a legal studies environment, to state things clearly, concisely, and also properly give legal citations so that someone reading the document after you can know where the information came from. Then in LS 503, we look at jurisprudence and legal history. As the course title sounds, it is a history course in some ways. We look at sources of historical development of legal principles as we have them now. We look at philosophical foundations of American legal principles. You'll develop an understanding of significant trends in American legal history, as well as current trends and development of law and the philosophy of law. And this works together to form the underpinning of many public policy actions. So by the end of this course, LS 503, you should be able to evaluate strengths and weaknesses of historical legal systems that have had an impact on the development of the U.S. legal system. Also assess moral and ethical principles of legal systems and philosophies on diverse populations and cultures. As we know, in the United States, we are a people from many different places with backgrounds essentially of individuals from all over the world. And so it helps to have an understanding of more than just the U.S. system as we look at where a lot of the ideas that are currently here came from. You'll be able to critique just and unjust laws and legal systems and understand why, in many cases, there needs to be a push for reforms or changing the law. You'll also be able to analyze the impact of legal processes in history and their impact on law and society. There's certain legal events that have occurred that have served as important landmark events to cause the law to move in one direction or another. You'll be able to examine the concept of manifest destiny, secession and separation, and their public policy backgrounds. Also, you'll be able to demonstrate an understanding of how one's perspective toward multiculturalism and diversity impacts an organization. This is very important, especially in contemporary society, and there's a lot of emphasis on this area. So this course gives you a historical framework for where we have been legally and where we are now, and some ideas about where we may be going. LS 504 is a very important course, Applied Research in Legal Studies. It teaches a scientific approach to solving social problems using experimental research methods, and you'll actually do some planning, some data analysis, some program evaluation. You'll look at the process of putting together an independent research project on a legal or policy related issue. You'll create a concise problem statement and lead up to a problem solving plan. And so you'll apply academic research tools, and looking at the literature, you'll be able to take a look at literature reviews that culminate with a prospectus or basic proposed plan that lays forth the methods of their investigation. So by the end of this course, you should have acquired an additional research tool that will affect your professional goals and prospects. So this course lays the groundwork for the second level applied research course that you will take later in the program. So by the end of LS 504, you should be able to recognize the role of applied research as an academic scholarly endeavor in a legal studies context. You should be able to develop a meaningful problem statement with a problem-solving plan for a research topic. You should be able to compose a literature review that applies scholarly, peer-reviewed research based on issues established in the problem statement. A literature review means you're looking at things that have already been written before, and you're evaluating them for strengths and weaknesses, and we'll say much more about that in LS 504. Also, you will be able to discuss the importance of evaluation in research policy and practice. It's not enough just to gather things. We need to evaluate them for their strengths and for their weaknesses and to determine their relevancy. Also, you'll construct a prospectus or basic proposed plan, setting the groundwork for an applied research project plan, and interact with others in the course in a professional manner using appropriate communication and presentation skills. So you will interact with your instructor in the course and also with other students in the course as you evaluate the prospectus information that each of you is setting forth. So if there are weaknesses in the thesis, if there are weaknesses in the methodology, these things will be pointed out to then allow you to strengthen them and to have things in good shape in LS 504 when you go on to take the second level of this course later. LS 508 is the family and the legal system, and you'll learn about family law and work with contracts, looking at prenuptial, postnuptial agreements, annulment, separation agreements, parenting plans, and this course will also look at the financial aspects of divorce, for example, considering then alimony and child support. And you'll also look at the intake process of these cases, discovery, meaning how information is gained from the other side in the case using the legal system, and also how property divisions generally are formed. And so by the end of this course, you should be able to discuss the fundamentals of marriage laws. You should be able to examine the requirements and usefulness of prenuptial agreements. You should be able to analyze types of custody and child support agreements and arrangements. You'll draft a divorce agreement. You'll draft a modified divorce agreement. And also you'll be able to contribute to team goals and objectives through active participation and collaboration through this entire course. There are few areas of law that are more diverse state to state than family law is. A lot of law is standardized, like federalized, like federal tax codes, the same everywhere. But grounds for divorce are different in many places, and how child support is calculated is different in many places. So you'll find that you'll learn a lot about your own state's family law system, but also the law of other states as well. LS 509 is our contracts as private law course, and this course deals with the idea of using contracts as a tool in society to establish private law through agreement. We call it private law because that's essentially what it is. If you and I have a contract, then you state what you want me to do, I state what I want you to do, and we set out the parameters there. In some cases, you can even set your own statute of limitations in a contract between individuals. This is especially true in the Uniform Commercial Code, but we'll talk about all that when we get into the course. But you'll study basic elements of the contract, including offer and acceptance and consideration, damages, restitution, and all sorts of interesting ideas here. And we will look at the contract as a foundational aspect of societal institutions and organizations and the philosophical underpinnings of the idea of a contract and the interface between law and society. So at the end of this course, you should be able to describe the legal responsibilities in a contractual relationship, analyze the elements of the contractual relationship, look at the remedies available. That means when somebody breaches the contract, what can you do? And there are many different things that can be done depending on the type of contract it is and the circumstances. We'll evaluate remedies here as well. And you'll also focus closely on using language that is clear, concise, and organized. A lot of litigation involving contract law happens when the people who drafted the contract did not do so clearly, when terms are in the contract that are ambiguous, that are difficult to understand, or that have more than one legitimate meaning. And we'll look at contracts that were poorly drafted as well as many that were well drafted. And then in LS 510, the focus is on intellectual property. There are 4 types of intellectual property: trademarks, copyrights, patents, and trade secrets, basically. And so IP, or intellectual property specifics, will fit into one of those general categories. So in this course, You'll explore various intellectual property protections, including those available to those who own patents, trademarks, copyrights, or who are seeking to preserve trade secrets. We'll look at the desirability of providing protections that are like a limited for some amount of time monopoly to using certain works, inventions in the case of patents, written works or music in the case of copyrights. And we'll also look at contemporary issues involving creation, distribution, and storage in digital media space that we find so prominent today. You'll be able to then have an introduction to ownership, infringement, and licensing issues related to these property rights and to the interrelationship between these issues and emerging digital media technologies. So after LS 510, you should be able to clearly differentiate between trademarks, copyrights, patents, and trade secrets in our intellectual property system. You'll analyze trademark selection, searching, registration, and maintenance functions to protect trademark rights. You'll look at copyright ownership, registration, transfer, and the duration of copyright protection. You'll look at patent searches, and the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has a great website that will be used, and we'll show you how to use it. And this also deals with patent applications, ownership, transfers of patent rights, and all sorts of things. We'll also illustrate how trade secret laws and these rights impact unfair competition laws. And so these are just some of the basic areas that we will look at in LS 510, intellectual property. And so I think you'll find all of these courses interesting, and we look forward to seeing you in class. Thank you.